Now we know what the it is. In the case of physical discomfort, it's the local uncomfortable touch, possibly the global spread, and possibly feel, image, talk reactions. That's the it. However, I'm giving you general principle that you can apply to any sensory challenge. Now, there's a tendency to think that, oh, if I'm going to turn towards it, I have to turn towards the most horrible, intense, solidified part of it. However, that is, although there's nothing wrong with that, that is certainly not necessarily the case. Where I like to start is I look at the sensory challenge and I ask myself, what's the weakest link? Which component in the sensory challenge is least intense? I'm going to go for that first. Typically, for me, I find that at least at the beginning of the discomfort, the least intense components are actually the feel, image, talk reactions. They're not too strong yet. They're just a subtle hint. So often I'll start with that. I won't even go to the uncomfortable touch. I'll go to, okay, what's going on in feel, image, talk, reactive to this, or in general, what's going on? Because I know if at some point I lose it and freak out, the freak out is not in touch space. The freak out is in fit space. So I want to get some momentum going in. And if at some point I become unwilling to practice, I said, like, to hell with this, et cetera, that's going to happen in fit space, not in the physical body. Touch space can take a lot. Feel, image, talk space is pretty vulnerable. So I start in feel, image, talk. Then when I go to touch, I try to detect the subtle global spread, if I can. And after many, many years of practice, usually I can. And I work with that. It's widespread, but it's not that intense relative to what's happening locally. So I sort of like work with that. I note that touch, sort of zoom into those things. Sometimes zoom out to try to get the whole spread at once, which does help with the dissipating. Zoom in means work with a small part. Zoom out means sort of spread the attention over the whole thing. Then I go into the local intensities. So, that's the strongest link. So when you work with a sensory challenge, you can focus away or you can focus on it. When you focus on it, you want to get a very clear classification of the sensory challenge, all its components, and then decide, well, do I want to go to this, which component do I want to go to? Do I want to work with them all at once, et cetera, et cetera? So, like I say, I typically work with the weakest link, and then I sort of work my way up, and then I work with it all at once. But usually by that time, it's breaking up into flow, meaning that it's not so solid anymore. It's beginning to show waviness, bubbliness, that kind of stuff. So now I'm noting touch, feel, image, talk, but it gets very flowy. So at some point, I'm just zooming out and I'm covering touch, feel, image, talk, all four simultaneously as a flow field. They integrate into a single body-mind arabesque of energy. And if it works right, I just get this flavor of purification. I get this sense that because of the way that I'm experiencing this moment, every moment of my life in the future is going to involve less suffering and more fulfillment. And furthermore, the poison and pain that has been stored from the past is getting worked out. So the present is reaching into the future, making a brighter future for me. And the present is reaching back into the past and cleaning that up for me. I call that experience the flavor of purification. Probably the most important watershed in a person's practice is when they start to develop an awareness of that flavor. Because after that, it takes off like a hockey stick. It's exponential because now you're getting a reward, an actual reward for your mindfulness. You're actually tasting not when the retreat's over, or when the sit's over, but like right now, in this instant, you're tasting that this is doing something significant and productive for you. And so there's a reward there. I personally have seen people sit for 3 days without moving. And I can tell you how it's done. It's done with a smile on the face. So it's like, what? Somebody's genetically engineered to do this? A human can do this? No, a human can train themselves along the lines of what I just said, so that the sense of this is meaningful and purgatorial, as opposed to meaningless and hellish, that sense is present moment by moment, and so there's a smile on the face. Even though the pain is hour after hour, right on the cusp of fainting intensity. And this is the easy thing. Now you want to know what the hard thing is? Okay, this isn't that easy, I know. But relative to something else, this is relatively easy. When the uncomfortable touch breaks up, you're beginning to have a complete experience of uncomfortable touch. When the uncomfortable touch turns into purification flavor, you're well on your way to complete experience. And you remember, I talked last night about the two things, right? Getting over the self in the world and improving the self in the world. And you get over the self in the world by having what I call a complete experience of yourself and the world. The relatively easy thing is to have a complete experience of uncomfortable touch. The harder thing is to have a complete experience of uncomfortable feel.